Now, how about drums? An instrument everybody loves.
Carrie Mae Weems is a contemporary American artist. Working in photography and video, her work confronts issues of racism, gender, politics, and identity, particularly those in the Black community. Born on April 20th, 1952 in Portland, Oregon, she went on to study dance and eventually received her MFA from the University of California, San Diego. In 2014, she was the subject of a major retrospective at the Guggenheim in New York titled 3 Decades of Photography and Video, which notably featured her early kitchen table series, a groundbreaking investigation of African American stereotypes. Her work can be found in the collection of the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, the Museum of Contemporary Art in Los Angeles, the Guggenheim Museum in New York, and the Museum of Fine Arts in Houston. Currently, Ms. Weems lives in Syracuse and Brooklyn, New York. You might see her walking down a Fort Greene street, so be on the lookout. Ernie Barnes was a Black painter, actor, and football player, best known for his depictions of figures in motion. His composition, often filled with crowds of people, were intended to promote racial harmony by showing people from different backgrounds standing side by side. "I am bound by the strongest ties with the organic life of all people," he said, "and being an artist has created in me the desire to continually affirm beauty." Barnes is commonly associated with the painting The Sugar Shack, inspired by the popular sitcom Good Times, which depicts a crowd of people dancing in a jazz club. Born on July 15, 1938, in Durham, North Carolina, Barnes continues to experiment with painting while studying at North Carolina College. After playing in the NFL for 5 years, he was hired to be the official artist of the New York Jets. His work has appeared on the covers of several albums, including B.B. King's Making Love Is Good For You and Marvin Gaye's I Want You. In 2004, the artist gained media attention after he was commissioned to paint the mural A Life Restored for Kanye West, which reflected on the rapper's near-fatal car accident. Barnes died on April 27, 2009 in Los Angeles. His work is currently held in the collection of the American Sports Art Museum, the Seattle Art Museum, and African American Museum in Philadelphia. Jacob Lawerence was an important Black painter known for his portrayal of Black culture in the early 20th century. Consisting of 60 panels of colored figure paintings, the artist's hallmark work, Migration Series, depicts the Great Migration of African Americans from the rural South to northern cities between World War I and World War II. "My belief is that it is the most important for an artist to develop an approach and philosophy about life," he once said. "If he has developed this philosophy, he does not paint on a canvas, he puts himself on a canvas." Born on September 7, 1917 in Atlantic City, New Jersey, and showing early talent at a young age, he was encouraged to attend the Harlem Community Arts Center, where he studied under the sculptor Augusta Savage. Completing his Migration Series at only 23 years old, in 1941, Lawerence was the subject of his first solo show at Downtown Gallery in New York and became the first Black artist ever to be represented by a New York gallery. During this time, he was credited with developing a unique aesthetic known as dynamic cubism, which Lawerence would attribute not to a European influence, but to a hard, bright, brittle Harlem. In 1970, Lawerence and his wife, the painter Gwendolyn Knight, moved to Seattle, where he taught art at the University of Washington. He died on June 9, 2000 in Seattle, Washington, at the age of 82. Today, Lawerence's works are held in the collection of the Phillips Collection in Washington, D.C., the Museum of Modern Art in New York, and the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. Jean-Michel Basquiat was an influential African-American artist who rose to success during the 1980s. His paintings are largely responsible for elevating graffiti artists into the realm of the New York gallery scene. His spray-painted crowns and scribbled words referenced everything from his Haitian and Puerto Rican heritage to political issues, pop culture icons, and biblical verse. Born on December 22, 1960 in Brooklyn, New York, Basquiat never finished high school but developed an appreciation for art as a youth. His early work consists of spray painting buildings and trains in downtown New York. After quickly rising to fame in the early 1980s, Basquiat's trouble with fame and drug addiction led to his tragic death from a heroin overdose on August 12, 1988. Today, Basquiat's work are held in a collection of the Museum of Modern Art in New York, the Rubel Family Collection in Miami, and the Museum of Contemporary Art in Los Angeles. His art will forever be remembered. John T. Biggers was an educator, painter, and muralist. He was born in Gastonia, North Carolina in 1924 and enrolled in Hampton University, where he initially studied plumbing. However, he found that his true love was art and soon changed his major. Biggers received his first notoriety in 1943 when the 19-year-old student artist was featured in the exhibit Young Negro Art in New York Museum of Modern Art. He earned a master's in art education in 1948 and a PhD in 1954 from Pennsylvania State University. While working on his dissertation, Biggers became an art instructor at the new Texas State College for Negroes, later known as Texas Southern University, becoming a founding member of its arts department. He continued to work at Texas Southern until his retirement in 1983. In 1957, Biggers was invited to participate in the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization Tour. On that tour, he became one of the first African American artists to travel to a newly independent Ghana. His experience there shaped his work. Biggers' early work was infused with examples of social realism. His work increasingly embodied the social and cultural themes he experienced while in Ghana. In the 1960s, Biggers was one of the first Black artists of the era to embrace an integration of African and African American influence in his work. By the 1980s and 1990s, he began incorporating themes of birth and rebirth as he incorporated more feminine concentrations into his work. John Biggers retired as a full-time faculty member at Texas Southern in 1983. He began working in collaboration with his brother James Biggers in the early 1990s. The two painted murals at Winston-Salem University in North Carolina and Hampton University in the late 1990s. Mr. Biggers died on January 25, 2001. However, his contribution to the art world will forever be remembered. Kara Walker is a contemporary African-American artist known for her exploration of race, stereotypes, gender, and identity throughout American history. She is best known for her large-scale collage silhouettes. Often filled with brutal imagery, Walker illustrates the country's origin of slavery in the antebellum South. I didn't want a completely passive viewer. Art means too much to me. To be able to articulate something visually is really an important thing, she explained. I wanted to make work where the viewer wouldn't walk away. He will giggle nervously, get pulled into history, into fiction, into something totally demeaning and possibly very beautiful. Born on November 26, 1969 in Stockton, California, Walker received her BFA from the Atlanta College of Arts in 1991 and her MFA in painting and printmaking from the Rhode Island School of Design 3 years later. She became one of the youngest recipients of the MacArthur Fellowship at age 28. Her art piece, Gone, an historical romance of a civil war as it occurred between the dusty thighs of one negress and her heart, was an early example of Walker's hallmark style. She currently lives and works in New York, and her works are held in the collection of the Museum of Modern Art in New York, the Tate Gallery in London, and the National Gallery in Washington, D.C. Kehinde Wiley is a Nigerian-American painter best known for his naturalistic portraits of African-American men in heroic poses. Born in Los Angeles, California, he earned his BFA from the San Francisco Art Institute and his MFA from the Yale University School of Art. Wiley's early work consists of photorealistic paintings of men whom he had met on the streets in Harlem, set against a floral background. In all of his work, Wiley combines a wide range of reference from classical painting and pop culture. Over the course of his career, the size of Wiley's canvases have expanded, and he began depicting his subjects, young black models or music icons, in heroic defeat as well as triumph. In 2007, Wiley began his ongoing series titled The World Stage with portraits of black men that imitated Maoist propaganda posters. He has continued to travel through Africa, Brazil, India, and Sri Lanka and paint portraits that incorporate the cultural imagery associated with these places. Wiley's work has been exhibited at the National Portrait Gallery in London, the Brooklyn Museum of Art, and the Studio Museum in Harlem, New York. He lives and works in Beijing, Dakar, and New York. Kerry James Marshall is a contemporary painter whose works explore the complex effects of the civil rights movement on the everyday life of African Americans. Through narrative scenes that draw both from history and the artist's own life, Marshall dives into the obscure moments and objects important to contemporary and past Black culture. His work is likewise concerned with the tradition of Western painting and the notion of mastery, authorship, and the erasure of Black bodies throughout art history. Marshall often exaggerates the color of the people in his work, making them as black as the pigment will allow, drawing more attention to the surrounding color and content of his paintings. Born on October 17th, in 1959 in Birmingham, Alabama, he grew up in the Watts neighborhood of South Central Los Angeles, going on to study at the oldest college of art and design. You can't be born in Alabama in 1955 and grow up in South Central near the Black Panthers headquarters and not feel like you've got some kind of social responsibility, he said. His works are held in the collection of the Art Institute of Chicago, the Museum of Modern Art in New York, the Los Angeles County Museum of Art, and the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C. Currently, Mr. Marshall lives and works in Chicago, Illinois. Lorna Simpson is a Black artist best known for her black and white photographs which explore the interplay between historical memory, culture, and identity. Often associated with post-colonial and feminist critique, Simpson's work seeks to show the ways in which race and gender shapes human interactions in the United States. In her most famous work, Stereostyles, she explores the way in which identity is externally projected, displaying 10 images of African American women in different hairstyles alongside text that reads sweet, ageless, and magnetic. Born in 1960 in Brooklyn, New York, Simpson studied photography at School of Visual Arts in New York and received an MFA from the University of California in San Diego. In 1986, she received critical attention for her photographic series, 21 Questions, a sampler, which evaluated the importance of image of contemporary society. In 2007, she was the subject of the retrospective title, Lorna Simpson, at the Whitney Museum of American Art in New York. Simpson lives and works in Brooklyn, New York with her husband and photographer, James Casper. Today, her works are held in the collection of the Museum of Modern Art in New York and the Miami Art Museum.